we are, the Dennis Rodman of real estate. We're in that land space where, hey, it's not sexy, but it gets the job done.
I just got back from the Cape yesterday, just spur of the moment trip. I couldn't do that like if I had my full-time job, right?
That's repeatable and scalable, which is probably why you're having so much success in it. Welcome back to Sky's the Limit podcast. We're your hosts, Mike and Ryan. And today we have an awesome episode. We have our first in-house guest, Gramoz, also known as G. What up, G? But before we begin, we wanted to catch up. How's the weekend? Wins and losses? What's going on?
Yeah. We say here all the time, we never remember what we do on the weekends. Isn't that so funny? Just time flies. No, I went to a 2-year-old's birthday. And to be honest with you, May's first birthday is coming up in a few months, and we're gonna need to really pull out all the cards. I mean, you should have seen this birthday cake.
Now you have something to work for.
Yeah, exactly. So that was fun. May had fun, so that's all that matters.
Wait, is that a thing? Like, you have to not trump, but it's like, okay, I can't be shown up by this other 1-year-old's birthday party. Like, I have to pull out all the cards here.
Dude, I asked them where they got this cake, so I know where they got it. I mean, this thing was massive, and people only ate half of it. I don't know what they did with the rest of it, seriously. But anyways, yeah, we'll pull out all the stops for her. I mean, it's a first birthday. I mean, you got to. Yeah.
I remember, so my dad had me when he was 29. So it was his 30th birthday, and I'll never forget it. He reminds me all the time. He's like, yeah, when I turned 30, which is a big one, you turned 1. You trumped I was like irrelevant that he turned 30 years old.
Yeah,
like,
that's what happens when you have a kid. Yeah.
So it's funny.
What'd you do this weekend?
Dude, I spent way too much time underneath the sink doing all plumbing work, and I'm like not handy at all. So it took me like 3 hours. Still didn't fix the issue. Just had like some sort of leak or like clog. And I ultimately still had to call a plumber. And then paid him $150. He was there for 20 minutes. But that's okay, because he has 30 years of experience to allow him to only be there for 20 minutes. And so I'll never get mad. I should have just freaking called the plumber to begin with. But
you were trying to prove to your fiance, Rachel, that you could actually do things.
I was trying to prove that I was pretty handy, and I failed miserably at it.
She thinks you're worthless, and she still does. Okay.
Pretty much. Did that, and then I just, played golf. So trying to get that handicap back down.
Yeah. Good stuff.
But yeah, excited for today's guest. Very successful entrepreneur. Today's guest is Gramoz. He's been involved in real estate since 2010. He's a value-add investor here in New England, primarily in Connecticut and Massachusetts.
Nice guy.
So really nice. Couldn't be more humble. He's doing a lot of BRRRRs, so he's adding a lot. He's buying distressed multifamily properties. He's adding value. But today we're really bringing him on to talk about his land development and how he's wholesaling land, how he got involved in it, and it's really good. We're going to unpack a lot, and let's get started. So, G, thank you for coming.
Our first in-person, in-studio guest. How do you feel?
This feels amazing, fellas. I appreciate you guys having me out here, and to be the first guest, man. That's an honor. So what a setup that you guys have in here too.
Appreciate that very much.
Yeah. How the lights treating you?
It feels like you're in Hollywood, so I'm getting a little take of, I guess being out west in California here.
That's good. So, for all the listeners out there, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then maybe a quick bio, and then we'll get into your real estate investing journey.
Yeah, sure. So I guess, like, where do you start, right? Like, where does your real estate journey begin? And I think with us, that started when, I moved from Albania to the United States when I was 9, right? Like many first immigration families, you're going to struggle financially. And my mother was a single parent raising me and my sister, hard worker. She was a waitress, and she did her best. We went on 2 vacations every year. We had gifts under the Christmas tree. But the reality was that, she was living paycheck to paycheck, right? And, we were in subsidized housing. And my thought process when I was young, it's like, hey, we came to the States for a better economic opportunity. So let's capitalize on that. So graduated from UConn in 2010. And my mom was actually my first real estate investment partner, believe it or not. So My mom had excellent credit, right? But she really didn't have a big salary, right? Whereas I just graduated out of college, so I had a pretty good income, but I had really no credit. So we bought our first duplex in Glastonbury, Connecticut, 2010. And that's like when the light bulb goes off, right? Like you're like, wait a second here. I've got the tenant next door that's paying the vast majority, not all of it, but the lion's share of the mortgage. And it's like, gee, you got to do this again, right? You got to replicate what you just did with this duplex in other efforts or other properties. So for the next 16 months, I probably bought another 3 properties, rented them out, and then one day my phone rings and it's my banker, right? My banker calls me and he says, hey, G, love working with you, but you know what? We just simply can't lend you any more money. Your debt to income ratio is too high, right? And I was bummed out. I was like, well, that sucks. Like, this was fun. Like, why can't we keep that going? And then unfortunately, I kind of took a pause from real estate for about 7 years. So didn't really do anything. I just maintained my properties. I collected rent. And then finally in 2019, I picked up this book, which, you know, a lot of real estate investors will call it the Purple Bible. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. For you listeners out there, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it just challenged you in terms of, hey, you could go out there and do this, right? It's just a matter of figuring out how to do it. So little by little, I just went to the local real estate meetup groups, met with other folks, would go on coffee dates, you know, and kind of figure out, hey, what is it that you're doing? Because I want to do that, right? And then I made it a point. I'm like, hey, listen, if I'm gonna go to the gym, if I'm gonna go to my friend's house, if I'm gonna be driving in my car, forget the radio, forget any sports channels. You're gonna be listening to real estate podcasts, right? Because ultimately, what that allowed me to do is you take the fear out of things, right? Like the analogy that I use is, if you're going to go down a flight of stairs in the dark, right, you're not going to run down, right? Because the likelihood of you hurting yourself is very likely, right? So you just want to be careful, take calculated risk, one step at a time, maybe hold that handrail, and soon enough, you know, you're going to be able to go down those flight of stairs. So that's what we did. We took a lot of calculated risks. You know, our favorite investment strategy from 2019 onward is the BRRRR strategy. Yep. I'm sure if you guys do it yourself, right, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But, you know, for those listeners out there, in the simplest forms, what we're doing is we're buying distressed properties, right? We're rehabbing the distressed properties so they're brand new, right? We're renting them out to qualified tenants that are now going to pay our mortgage. And then we're refinancing, you know, hopefully at a much higher appraised value. And then ultimately wanting to repeat that process where we could scale up, right? So in doing so, we found success. You know, now we're at 50 rental units. So very grateful for everyone that's helped us along the way, have that be our investors, family and friends that have supported us, our contractors. You know, it's been one heck of a ride. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, congratulations on all your success. That's amazing. Also, I didn't know you went to UConn.
I did.
Dude,
I did.
Go Huskies.
Go Huskies.
Yeah.
Man. Go men's basketball.
So you were 2010?
2010.
So you have all residential multifamily, 2 to 4 units?
Small multifamily.
That's
our sweet spot. Hartford, Middlesex. And we dabble a little bit in New Haven County as well.
Okay.
But we like to keep it close to home.
Yeah. So one of the things Ryan and I talk about a lot on the podcast is kind of our wins and losses. Mm-hmm. So, you know, you're an active real estate investor. I'm sure you got active deals going on. I want to hear about some wins and losses going on currently right now in your portfolio.
Okay. Well, I'm always optimistic about things. So we're going to start off with the wins.
Okay.
Kick it from there. So I actually bought a real estate deal from Mike and Ryan a few months ago.
That's right.
You did.
We met up just like I do with a lot of people. We met up for coffee, talked about, you know, what you guys are doing and what we're doing. And, you know, they had this duplex out in New Britain. They were looking to assign it. Mike told me all about how he got the contract that day, ran over to the property owner, got it signed. And it was great because we've been able to now, you know, fix that property, stabilize it. We added a 4th bedroom to each unit and we're getting killer rent.
What are you getting?
So 2024 fair market rents were just put out, you know, last month. 3-bedroom in New Britain now is going for $1,900 a month.
No, it's not.
4-bedroom are going for 22.
Wow.
What?
Approved.
That's amazing.
I didn't know it was that high.
We wholesaled you a 2-family house. Do you remember what you bought it for? It's like
160. Then you guys, like gentlemen, gave us a $5K credit.
Yeah, the trash out.
Yeah, the trash out.
So you netted so you bought it for 155 essentially.
Yep.
And then, so 2-family house. It was in like decent shape. You needed a lot of cosmetic upgrades. And
Yep.
then you bought it for like 155 essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And how much rehab did you put into
Probably put in about 50.
it? 50K. So you're all in, let's say 200, 205. And right now you're in what process of that? The refi stage?
So we've stabilized it. Now we've got tenants finally in the unit, right? So now we're going to call our commercial lender.
Yep.
So they'll go in it, they'll appraise it. I suspect, I'm very confident that it's going to come at 320 plus.
That's amazing. So
Right.
you bought it for
Great.
155. You put in, let's say, 155. You put in 50. You're all in for 205 plus holding costs.
Mm-hmm.
You rented each unit out for how much?
19 and 22.
That's amazing.
That's amazing rent.
So
And-
good.
And now,
And
so you're,
qualified tenants too.
that's amazing.
When you've got a brand new unit, it's like you create a bidding war with the tenants because they're saying, why wouldn't I want to live here?
Right.
Right.
So you're all in for 205 plus holding costs, call it 220. And you're going to go out and get a new loan from a different bank. And they're going to give you 75% of that ARV, that after repair value, which you think could arguably be 350.
Conservatively 320, but it could be 350. I mean, the market's only getting hotter
Yeah.
and hotter. It's like I just can't believe it.
So when
So
that's a perfect burr right there.
A good
yeah, we
amount
will,
of it.
we will get our money back and then some. It's almost like
amazing.
having an infinity return, right? Like
Right.
the cash on cash is 100% plus. So
Now I'm thinking, Ryan, man, we should have kept
we
that
should
one
have
for
kept it.
ourselves.
So-
those
man.
assignment fees look good back then, but not
Yeah,
so
I
much
know.
6 months later.
That's wealth building right
Yeah.
there. Like
Yeah, no,
wholesaling,
you're right, you're right.
flipping, like
You're
you
right,
get
right.
you can get rich from it. It's a good, way of living, but like that's wealth building. And
So
that's the difference.
That 50K, like just generally, was it like interior work, roof, side? Like what was it?
So one of the things that we've learned in our real estate careers, like we no longer use a general contractor, right? We only use subs, right? If we had used a general contractor, that would have probably been a $70,000 scope of work. But the fact that now we have relationships with different trades, right? So we've got a plumber, we've got an HVAC guy, we've got someone that could do, I guess labor or whatever that trade may be. Now we've got connections with all these different trades, which allows us to lower that labor cost.
Are you GCing it?
No, the operations manager will be GCing it.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's someone on your team.
someone on the team. Someone on the team will GC it.
What does your team look like today?
2 people.
That's it?
It's just 2 people.
Keep it simple.
It's 2 managing partners, and then everybody else is just, you've got your partners in terms of lawyers, accountants, obviously contractors and so forth, but just 2 folks.
Did you have the regular headaches and hiccups finding good contractors like everybody else on the planet?
Oh yeah.
Brutal. So brutal.
I've been burned a few times, and who hasn't, right?
I know, yeah.
Right.
But like once you find a good contractor,
Lock 'em in.
It's like the holy grail. You don't.
Handcuffs.
So people ask all the time, "Oh, can you refer like a contractor, a good electrician or plumber?" It's like, no, I can't. Like you don't want it because then they start working for other people, and then they're too busy for your jobs. So it's like you want to help others, but you also want to like keep your operations going.
100% accurate. It's
like
exactly.
a double-edged sword.
I used to tell. I'm like, hey, I love this guy so much. I want to give him more business, but then I don't because I want to keep him from my projects.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So you've been primarily investing in multifamily burrs, we'll say.
Yeah.
But also land, right? Most recently land. And that's what I really want to talk about today is, we know a little bit about land, but we don't, you've actually bought land, right?
I bought a piece of land.
Yeah.
I bought a piece of land. It's not really like an investment per se, but when we built our house, personal house, a year or 2 ago, there was just like 2.5 acres for sale behind it. I was like, all right, I had some extra money, so I bought it. I actually used an escalation clause to get it done. I think I bid like 40,000, and then I was willing to go up to 45 and in like $1,000 increments. And I ended up getting it for like 41. So it worked out. Yeah. I mean, it's nice to have the piece of land. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. It just kind of sits there and like costs money, to be honest. But I know it's cool to have.
Yeah, that's really cool. If you buy land for purely investment reasons.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So how do you go from successfully burring a number of properties, getting now 50 unit portfolio? Again, that's amazing. Congratulations. But how do you get into land? Like, what prompted you to get into land? Why did you get into land? The benefits of owning land and kind of the differences between multifamily and just owning pure raw land. So yeah, I'd like to hear about that.
So we never knew that we wanted to get into land, right? What we did know is that we wanted to cut out the middleman. So in other words, we didn't want to be dependent on someone giving us a lead, right? So that person, that stakeholder could be, a realtor that's got a pocket listing, and they'll call me and say, "Hey, G, come take a look at this." That could be an REO broker that's got access to foreclosed properties. It could be a contractor that, saw a home that was neglected and thinks it's a good lead for you. So we didn't want to be dependent on having someone to make our phone ring. We wanted to become a wholesaler, right? And being a successful wholesaler is very, very difficult, right? Because your only job is to pretty much find off-market, discounted value add properties. It sounds really easy. Like when you say it, sounds very easy.
It's the holy grail.
But it's so difficult to do.
Yeah.
Right? It's no doubt. Difficult. So when you're becoming a wholesaler, I think you start to realize that you're no longer in the real estate industry. You are now in the marketing industry, right? You have to think about what is it that you have to do to make that phone ring, right? Yep. And at the time, I was a multifamily investor, and I would get calls every day. I would get text messages every day. I would get postcards from Ryan every week.
That's right.
Ryan's got
Absolutely.
some slick postcards that he sends out, and they all want to buy my multifamily properties, right? And, I had a conversation with the other managing partner, and I said, I think we certainly want to go the wholesale route. Well, we have a direct path and a line of sight to, the property owner. I'm just not so sure that multifamily is the right approach, right? We just felt like at the time, especially during COVID, we weren't going to be competitive, and maybe we just get lost in the shuffle. So we challenged ourselves from ground zero to learn about a new asset class. Hell, I don't even think we knew how to spell land, right? But we're just like, let's just learn about it, right? And so if you think about land, it's not sexy. It's not sexy at all, right? You walk into $1 million listing, single family home, you're going to see the Wolf stainless steel appliances. You're going to see the marble, granite from Tuscany, Italy. You're going to see the floor to ceiling, windows, right?
Yep.
It's a wow factor.
Absolutely.
Okay. You walk into $1 million land flip, you know what you're going to see? You're going to see mosquitoes. You're going to see poison ivy. You're going to see ticks, and you're going to see mud.
Yep.
It's not sexy. It's not sexy. I'm a big fan of sports analogies. And Dennis Rodman, if you guys know him, if you don't know him, he was a basketball player for the Pistons and Bulls. And he was just grimy, right? Like he would outbox you. He'd get every rebound, offensive, defensive. He'd jump for the ball. He'd dive for the ball. He'd get the rebound, put it back in for a layup. There was nothing sexy about his game, right? There was no, he's not the Steph Curry where he's, ball behind the back, splashing threes, He
was gritty.
He was gritty. And that's what we are. We are, the Dennis Rodman of real estate. We're in that land space where, hey, it's not sexy, but it gets the job done.
I love that. Yeah. I love that analogy.
So
how does it work, like, or for your team, like, what's your end goal with land? Because you buy a piece of land, and you got to do something with it. Whether you're parceling it off and reselling it, or you're developing it, like, what's your end goal with it?
So it depends if you're talking short term or long term, right? Short term, where we currently sit today, we do everything possible to complete all land entitlements, right? So just for an example, you've got a landowner that gets one of our mailers. They call in to the call center, someone picks it up, and then they give us a lead, right? What we want to be able to do is complete the paper entitlements on that lot, right? So if there's a survey that needs to be done, we want to make sure that it conforms to the bylaws. If there's any type of, utility tie-ins, we want to make sure that soil is suitable. And we want to do all the paper entitlements. So therefore, we could then sell it off to either a developer or, a retail buyer where they could build up, right? So that's the short-term goal. So we're able to essentially flip that contract to someone that can now, break dirt and then build vertically. The end goal, right? Like I think that's why we all, are in the real estate game, is one, to create generational wealth, but two, to have time, right? Like Mike, you just went to France for a couple weeks. That looked, I saw your Instagram stories. That looked like you had a good time.
French Riviera was amazing. Yeah, it was really cool, different part of the world, and an experience that, fortunately, real estate has provided a way to get there and see it. So it's cool. Yeah.
And Ryan, I mean, you've got your daughter May, right?
Oh yeah.
So
we just I just got back from the Cape yesterday. Just spur of the moment trip. On Tuesday, we're like, let's just go drive a couple hours. Like, can't do that. I couldn't do that. Like, if I had my full-time job, right?
Actually, not possible. Speaking of full-time job, I don't want to skip over this. I want to go back to land, but so we've known you for a couple of years now, and you work a full-time job?
We were just saying, like, G doesn't work. He does real estate full-time. There's no way he's doing all this stuff, and he still has a job. But you do.
I do.
So, but you're going to, like, this will be your last year, right?
This will be my last year. I have officially
amazing.
given, I guess what they call it, an extended notice. It's a 3-month notice. I love the company that I work for. They've allowed me to grow and be the person that I am today. But it's time to cut the umbilical cord. It's time to burn the boats and not look back, And I'm very grateful and honored to have worked with them. But real estate is my passion, and I've got to, I've got to be laser focused with whether it's multifamily or land, and
so you've effectively been able to generate enough. We'll say, real estate isn't truly passive the way we're doing it, but you've effectively been able to generate enough income to supplement that W-2 job you've had through your 50-unit portfolio, through your BRRRRs, and now wholesaling land. And have you developed any land that you've bought in yet?
We haven't. So again, the long-term goal, right? You talk about short-term is being able to monetize on the permitting and be able to trade it and sell it for retail dollar, right? Long-term, the goal is to be able to get into, commercial residential, where why not build up, right? If you've got an equity jump by being able to find this lot for a deep, deep discount, why not leverage that and then, perhaps partner with a successful operator that's got experience in the new construction industry?
Absolutely.
Right? Why not do that?
So I'm doing actually a couple loans for some borrowers in Florida, and they're building just single family homes. They bought the land, right? We're financing like 100% of the build.
Yeah.
So if you can get in, like you're saying, like discounted land, do the entitlements and everything, you can find a lender like myself or somebody else, 100% of the build costs.
Are you buying land with cash?
So land is very difficult to finance, and Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, right? But no institutional lender is going to go out and say, hey, I'm TD Bank, I'm Bank of America, or maybe I'm a smaller portfolio lender like a credit union, and finance that deal, unless you've got a new construction component tied to it.
Right. Like if you're building a house.
Like you're building a house, exactly. Like you're building a house. So the way that we fund land is it's got to be really one of two ways. One, it's your own capital, or two, you have to be able to raise it from private investors, right? So you have to be able to go in and be able to pitch a private investor on, hey, why is it that this property or why this piece of parcel is a good investment option for you, and how is it safe?
Right.
And I think in the beginning we struggled a little bit because we were so good at being a successful operator in the multifamily space. But as you're getting your first couple deals, you put together your investor deck and everything looks great. And then you get to your case studies and it's like, hey man, why do you have a fix and flip for your land business? And, clearly that raises some eyebrows. Right. So we had to lean on family and friends in the beginning, but now we're at the point where the deal, we underwrite them so well that, investors are happy to come in and honestly even, keep rolling their investments into new ventures.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't come overnight. I mean, you've built an awesome track record, a resume, you might say, that has allowed you to have those conversations with private investors. And like I said, that doesn't come overnight. So
How do you price land? Like, are you looking at like price per? Like, when you're looking at like a 10-acre parcel, are you like, okay, 1 acre is X, and there's 10 here? Like, how do you put a price tag on that?
God, there's no science to it.
Okay.
If there was, man, I'd be a millionaire like overnight. It's tough, right? Because like if you compare it to like a residential space, you could say, okay, well, this is a 3-bed, 2.5 bath, colonial. And for the most part, if you look in a 1 mile radius, you'll be able to see comparables for that. Land just doesn't operate that way, right? And, the rule of thumb is that, hey, what you want to do is you want to buy that piece of land at 20% of whatever the appraisal of whatever you build on that lot is. So, some developers will pay less, some retail buyers will pay more. So if you've got $1 million home that you're building on it, that in the retail market, it's going to trade for about $200,000. So you as the wholesaler, that's where negotiation comes in, right? If you bought it for $199, great, you made yourself $1,000, right? But if you bought it for $100,000, you just have a $100,000 spread.
right.
But there's really no science to it. It's as much as we look at comps, and I've got my license in Connecticut and Massachusetts. Never once have I listed any one of my land listings.
Wow.
Really?
Not once. Not once. We always want a local land broker to handle that transaction for us.
There's land brokers?
Well, I guess I call them land brokers, but they've sold land.
Fair
so
enough.
That makes them a land broker.
They're
in my
land
eyes.
brokers for G.
Yeah.
In-house land brokers.
I love my land brokers.
That's awesome.
So that we did a ton of postcards.
That's right.
We don't do too many now. We kind of pivoted, but like I heard you say you're doing postcards and you have a call center. Is that your main marketing strategy for this stuff?
That is our only marketing strategy. So, when being a wholesaler, there's such a big investment in operational and marketing costs, right? Because data itself is so expensive, right? You're going to have to start skip tracing and pull, the data of the people that you want to market to, right? And then, our preferred niche is mailers, right? We send a mailer out, and once that mailer goes out, somebody reads it. It's everything in that mailing piece is very deliberate in terms of the context, in terms of, what they read, what is the call to action. After they read it, we want them to do something. We want them to take action, right? And one of the things that we're a big believer on is if they're going to call us, someone's got to be at that other line to pick up the phone. Because if they get a voicemail, that's a lost lead. And we work very hard to get those leads. So we've got a call center that we've got dialed in. We've got a script that we give them. And someone's always picking up that phone call. You'd be surprised how many of our leads we get that they said, well, I called 5, land purchasers or so, I called 5 of your competitors and they didn't pick up. You guys picked up.
That's it.
So let me tell you about why I want to sell, this land to you.
Oh.
So somebody at the call center takes that call, takes notes, and then passes it along to you?
Yeah, we've got a script. It's almost as if, they're part of the team.
That's repeatable and scalable, which is probably why you're having so much success in it.
So I'm just curious about one part in the call center. Do you trust them to close a deal, or are they just taking information, relaying it to you, and you're the closer?
Yeah. So we absolutely do not want them to be the closer. Absolutely not. We just want them. It's more of an intake call. Hey, thanks for calling in. Tell us a little bit about how you heard about us. Tell me where the parcel is. Why is it that you're looking to sell your land? It's nothing more than pre-qualifying the lead, right? That lead ultimately goes to our acquisitions manager, who's going to be able to speak with that individual on the phone and then negotiate and close. We do not want someone that's taking that intake call to have that conversation.
They're just information gatherers.
Yeah. One of the things that we tried cold calling, we sucked, right? We hired some virtual assistants and we said, hey, here's the list. We built out a script. Hey, I know I'm calling you out of the blue, right? I don't know if you've heard that one.
Yeah.
And we were horrible. The VAs, it was just a different cultural, perhaps background, right? We'd be in the middle of winter and I hear the calls when I'm doing, quality assurance, and the seller's going, "Hey, how about that snow outside?" And our VA's got the rooster in the background, and it just didn't work for us, right? So we do not want our intake folks being able to have that conversation. It's just a matter of getting their information, and then someone from our team will reach out to them, and it's a very personable call that we'll take on.
Yeah, that's great. I'm just thinking about land. Like we do marketing for like 1 to 4 units and like stuff that everybody on the planet wants right now, and it's so saturated. Would you say that land isn't really that? Are there other people like you like out there doing this, or no?
There are. I don't think that there's as many, but they definitely are. When again, that's why you have to be very strategic in terms of your marketing, right? To make sure that when someone gets your mailer, it stands out. So I don't think it's as saturated because again, I just don't think most investors, think about land as often. But we're definitely starting to see some competition out there, and we're starting to run into some of the big players too, especially in the Massachusetts market.
What do you like more? So you've done the multifamily, now you're doing land. What do you like more? What do you like owning more? What do you like selling more? Just the whole process, multifamily or land?
I can't answer that question because I think I love both.
No, you have to.
No. Oh, geez. Okay,
No, I'm just
put me
kidding.
on the spot.
I'm just kidding.
I got to tell you, ultimately, land will lead to multifamilies, right? So I will tie those two together.
Okay.
Trust me on that. So it's a combination.
Wow, really interesting.
Yeah, we've never. I mean, you have the one piece of land you bought, but that was only because you bought the single family house.
Yeah,
and you just didn't want anyone to build behind you.
Yeah, and there's literally a listing directly behind my house. I'm like, I don't know, like I might as well just buy this thing, right?
Maybe you could parcel it off or subdivide it one
Yeah,
day.
but in all the years that we've been doing like our marketing, we have come by land deal.
Yeah.
We probably pass on land deals. We could have
all the time
sold to G.
Just it's lack of information. I just don't know enough about land to feel confident. It's the whole analogy you put with the staircase, right? It's like maybe we should start.
Or like I know that we've gotten leads where it's like, oh, duplex, awesome. And they're like, oh yeah, there's also this like vacant land next to it, like whatever, if you want it. Like that's a thing, right? Like you could subdivide it or you could sell off that parcel. I know we've missed opportunity there.
Right. And that's right. A lot of investors don't give it a lot of thought. But I got to tell you, if you take a look at the pros and cons in terms of land, and there's a big laundry list on both sides, you take a look at some of the pros. Land is stable, right? It's not that we're not immune to market trends, but it's limited. They're not making any more of it. So it's not as volatile as what you may see in other asset classes. And historically, it's gained equity over time, right? The other thing is that land, there's no maintenance, right? So if we were to take a look at...
Love that.
I love that.
I used to hate when I used to have flips on the market. And if it's a summertime, it's like, who's watering the flowers? Who's cutting the grass?
Right.
Are the utilities on? Do we have enough oil if it's the winter?
Yep.
Man, it snowed overnight. And now is the plow guy going to get in there at 8 o'clock for my 9 o'clock viewing? Right.
Yeah.
Good point.
Land, there is no maintenance, right? From acquisitions to due diligence to dispositions, sometimes we buy it sight unseen. Now, having said that, we've got the local land broker that will walk the line. We've got the engineer that will ultimately build a survey. But between the folks internally in the company, sometimes we'll buy it and sell it without even having touched it.
No kidding.
Yeah, makes sense. Like you say, what's there to really see? Everything you can do online.
The one time that we have done something is we had a lot in East Haddam, Connecticut, and I got a brush hog to just do a 6 foot wide trail because the house is going to be an estate lot. It's going to be 400 feet within the lot. So we wanted to make sure that whoever's going to view that lot, they could actually access it, and they're going to be able to see where the footprint, the building footprint would be. But other than that, no maintenance. No maintenance.
So when you're doing the entitlements, like you don't really even need to go there? Like it's all just paperwork?
You're flipping paper.
Wow.
You are flipping paper. But I got to tell you, land is very, very risky, right? It could be just like any other asset class. Everything could be lucrative, but land is specifically risky because to the naked eye, you're looking at a quarter-acre lot and you're saying, wow, this is great. I'm going to be able to put, $1 million house here. Okay. But, there are so many different restrictions. Have it be zoning, right? Do you have the proper frontage? Do you have the proper lot size? What are the setback requirements, right? What about environmental restrictions? What if there's wetlands? What if there's an endangered species? What if there's perennial streams, right? And then you have soil quality restrictions. What happens if, you've got bedrock 2 feet under that piece of land, or you've got high groundwater? What you thought was a parcel that could cost you, you could trade for $250,000, it may be worthless. It's just a bunch of dirt.
Wow. Yeah, it's high. That is high risk.
So, and then you don't even want to talk about title searches. Title searches in land are complex.
Wouldn't you do the title search with your attorney before you bought that piece of land, though?
Well, it's in our due diligence. We're under contract, right? So if you were to take a look at the due diligence in the land space, we try to get to the fastest way to know, or the cheapest, the least expensive way to know, right? So that starts with a lot of, just like you guys would, right? With multifamily, you go look at some desktop underwriting, you look at comps, we look at what's the slope of the lot? Is this thing flat, or do I feel like I'm on a roller coaster ride and the site prep is going to be too expensive and it's cost prohibitive? We want to make sure that there's no, wetlands, there's no streams. And if it passes that sniff test, now you've got to deal with the town hall. You got to call the health department, conservation commission, the building, zoning. And that's tough because they're not as quick to call you back. So there's a lot of calls that are being made to town hall. And that takes a little while, right? And if, we get to a no, then to your point, Ryan, like one of the things that we like to do is then we like to then sell that unbuildable lot to one of the abutting neighbors.
Right.
I will handwrite, that envelope. So that way, when they get that letter, they're going to automatically open it. Right. So if, we've had instances where the land is not buildable, right? But the abutting neighbor wants to buy it because he wanted to have like a bee farm, right? He's got another acre of land that he could, maybe use it recreationally. Another abutting neighbor used it for, he wanted to hike. So he's like, hey, I want this 2 acre of land that's got scattered wetlands, but I could use it as a hiking trail.
Wow.
So, we could easily flip, a worthless piece of property. But to the abutting neighbor, that's, maybe they want the privacy. So no one coming in. Maybe the bylaws change in 10 years where that unbuildable lot is now buildable based on, maybe that's an opportunity zone.
So your due diligence, so typically for multifamily due diligence, to say 2 to 4 unit house, you have, you put it under contract and you have 12 to 14 days, let's say for a normal transaction. But for your due diligence, which is where you'd find out all the information you need to find out. But for land, that timeline's probably a lot longer. Because like you said, you're waiting to hear back from, the surveyors and engineers and councilmen and town hall and all that stuff. What is a typical timeline for due diligence when buying land? Like before you close on it?
6 months minimum.
Whoa.
Wow.
6
No way.
months?
We do
I would have said 2 months, 6 months.
Wow.
6 months.
Shit,
And let me tell you why, right? Because again, land is very risky. And unfortunately, sometimes the due diligence process is very, very expensive in land because you also have to hire white collar professionals, right? Because you, as the investor, don't necessarily know what's underneath the soil, how good the soil is, and the topography of the soil until you get these professionals that go in there and tell you exactly what the truth is, right? So what we essentially do is by the time that we closed on it, we've already flipped the land, right? The only thing left to do is hand it off to a realtor in a pretty bow and say, take some drone footage and put this thing on the MLS. Like that's the only thing that we have left to do. Like when you buy a multifamily home, you do your due diligence, you have an appraisal, you do your inspection. But once you close, that's when the real work starts. Like now you've got to go in and fix it. Now you've got to go in and stabilize it, rent it out. Whereas with land, we're doing all of that up front.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you have 6 months of due diligence, but then you're already finding your end buyer during that period as well.
So we will never sell off market. We will never ever sell off market. So in other words, I've had land brokers come up to me and say, "Hey, G, thanks for telling me about this opportunity. I've got a buyer that will buy this for you. Let's call it at $50,000." Okay. I will say no to that all day if I know that if I spend another $10,000, $20,000 and it'll take me another 3-4 months, but I could sell it on the MLS for 100, 120 on the back end, I will do that all day. So I will never take the quickest exit, if you will, for the sake of doing an off-market transaction.
It's like you've waited this long, might as well wait another couple months.
Yeah.
So what's like the days on market for? I feel like I see land just sitting there, like, or does it go quick sometimes?
So land is not sexy, right? Like, okay, so if you guys, we do the drone footage, we put it up on the MLS. We've had instances where it does sell within 24 to 48 hours. But we have had instances where it sits for 6 months, and this is a lakefront property, right? And you have to have the right buyer, because it's like when you stage a house, right? The reason why you stage a house is because your end buyer can't vision what it looks like, right? With land, it's the same thing. You give them this empty lot, and now they've got to go in and walk it. They've got to go bring in their architect that tells them, hey, this is your building envelope, but this is what your house will look like. And that takes time, right? So if you're buying land and you put it on the market on Thursday, do not expect 50 people to line up for an open house over the weekend and then have five offers over asking. It is slow.
It's just a different animal.
It's a different animal.
Yeah, it's a different animal. So what does the future look like for you and your partner?
Right now, we've got a proof of concept as it relates to the land space. We feel confident that we've built the right due diligence and also the right processes in place to just make sure that we know who to market to, how to perform the due diligence, and then the multiple exit strategies that we have. But again, ultimately, the end goal in all of this is how do you create more passive income? And that's going to be via, new construction and hopefully in the commercial space.
Yeah.
Do you have one deal that sticks out that you could kind of dive deep on? Tell us how you found it, bought it, what you did with it.
Yeah.
Numbers associated with it.
We call it the pound cake deal.
The what?
The pound cake.
I love it.
I haven't had breakfast yet. I'm kind of
It was a 40-acre lot out in Southwick, Mass. And this lot's been on the market for quite some time. The landowner, had it, and they tried to subdivide it in the past, didn't have any success. And we got it on market, and we were speaking with the seller, and we got it under contract. And one of the things that was we didn't have access to utilities, so we didn't have access to septic or sewer and water. So we had to do what they call a percolation test, which is pretty much going and digging holes all throughout the lot to see if the soil will absorb the water fast enough to accommodate a septic system. So I went out there with an engineer and an excavator, and I poked around that lot everywhere. I poked and we dug and we failed. And I was like, man, we just lost like $5,000 today in due diligence because the engineer costs money, right, to be out there. The excavator costs money to be out there. And my business partner, he said, no way. This is 40 acres we're talking about here. You just didn't poke enough holes. And I'm like, okay, man, if you want to do this,
we'll keep poking.
And I'm like, listen, this is very early on in our business venture, and we're in the red, right? Like in my head, I'm like, God, we're wasting another $5,000.
Yeah, it's just all soft costs. Just no construction happening. I mean, it's just all soft costs, like due diligence.
Due diligence.
Price of doing business.
So you keep poking, I assume.
I didn't go.
Let me take over.
So he went out there, and I get a call at 11 o'clock, and he goes, we fucking perked it.
Wow.
And
I can think of like Shia LaBeouf in the movie Holes, just digging holes all over the freaking land.
So he went out there poking holes, and we got one lot to perk. And when we knew once we get one, we're going to be able to subdivide this into 3 different parcels.
Wow.
And that's exactly what we did. We're able, the perking was a nightmare to deal with because the soil was bad, but after being out there enough times, we're able to perk and subdivide, into 3 lots.
So you bought it, what'd you buy that 40-acre lot for?
We bought it for $100,000
And you subdivided how many lots?
into 3.
And what'd you sell each one off for?
59, 125, and 100.
Nice job.
Yeah.
Nice
Excellent
job.
return. Wow.
Wow. That's
kept
really
kept
good.
the lights on for us. 'Cause
Yeah.
it was
How long did it take to turn all that?
a year.
A year.
A
Okay.
year.
I mean, you made over 6 figures on it.
Yeah.
That's really good.
And we
And
got-
was that your first stab at land?
No, we've had
You know-
other. I mean, that was kind of the ones. That was the one that we said, okay, we figured this out.
Yeah.
Like that was. There's other ones that we've made pretty good assignment fees, but that was the one that we said, okay, we figured it out. We know who to market to.
Just got to dig more holes. That's all you have to do.
Yeah, it's that's exactly right. Just keep digging holes.
Just keep
So
percolating.
all over like where I live and on that other piece of land, like maybe this is totally wrong, but like there's like these big white things that stick out of the ground.
That's
Is that
right.
like they've
That's-
perked that? Okay, that's what
that's
that is.
exactly where they perked it, and they're either they were successful at it. So yeah.
Okay.
You have a percolated land.
Yeah, exactly. So do you just need like one spot to perk, or do you need like a number of?
So you need in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, because that's where we do a lot of our business. We don't do a lot in Connecticut, if any. But in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, they call it what's called Title V. So those are the requirements in terms of being able to have a successful, buildable lot as it relates to the soil. So you need 4 deep holes, right? Those 4 deep holes essentially confirms that there's no high groundwater and there's no rock ledge, right? So you could put a septic system underground, and then there's 2 perks. So there's 2 holes that you have to dump water into it, and then it has to absorb at a speed where it's recognized by the state that it could, take on a septic system.
So deep is 10 feet, 50
10
feet?
yeah.
Oh,
10
okay.
Yeah. We go pretty deep. You don't want to fall in that hole.
Right,
You
right.
do not
right.
want to fall in there.
If you're on city utilities like water, all the normal stuff, do you need perk tests?
No, you could tap right into it. It comes at a cost. But you could definitely, ideally, utopia would be that you've got access to city water, city sewer, because it completely eliminates this exercise.
Right.
No kidding. Wow,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, that was amazing.
And we got a pound cake recipe with
Yeah,
that
actually,
perk.
Wait, hold
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
pause.
go back to the
we gotta
pound
know
cake.
why this is
So
called
why?
that.
Yeah.
Well,
Why the
because,
pound cake?
As the business partner was talking to her, they were kind of, talking about what they were doing that Saturday. And I think the seller was talking about how she was making pound cake, and it's the most delicious pound cake. And she gave him the pound cake recipe when he got the signed purchase and sale agreement.
Wow.
That's
He had to
awesome.
I love
physically
it.
go to the house, get the signed agreement, and then alongside with it is a handwritten pound cake recipe.
Hell yeah. Maybe
Probably
got it.
passed down from generations. Of,
Yeah, right.
That's so cool.
Dude, this is awesome. Thank you so much for coming. Congratulations on all your success. Thank you for being the first in-person guest of ours in the studio.
Exciting.
Hopefully many more to come. And obviously we'll follow your journey as you progress in your land development and wholesaling and burring more multifamily. But thank you again for coming. We really appreciate it.
Gee, thank you so much for that. That was amazing. If people want to know more about you, how do they find you?
Yeah, probably the easiest way is my Instagram handle. So it's Gramoz0206.
And we'll link everything in the show notes below. But yeah, thank you again.
If you like what you heard, find us on our website, skytreeinvestments.com/podcasts. We're in video form on YouTube and on all other social media platforms.
And just remember, sky's the limit. Dive deep and invest in how you want to live. See you next week.